Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing. I know that may sound counterintuitive, especially in a world that encourages us to speak up, voice our opinions, and stand our ground. But trust me, there are moments when silence isn't just golden, it's transformative. So let me give you 5 situations where silence could change everything. Silence is often underestimated in a world that values constant communication. We live in an age where talking is synonymous with action and speaking is often seen as proof of authority or knowledge. Yet, there is an undeniable strength in silence that we rarely acknowledge or fully appreciate. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of thought, clarity, and strength. At its core, silence is a powerful tool for growth. It provides the space necessary for reflection. In a culture that thrives on noise, whether it's the hum of constant notifications, the chatter of social media, or the rush of conversation, silence offers a sanctuary. When we embrace silence, we allow ourselves time to step away from the clamor of daily life and listen to the deeper currents of our thoughts. It's in these moments of quiet that we begin to understand not only the world around us, but also the inner workings of our own minds. Without the noise, we can hear what truly matters. Silence can also be a safeguard against impulsive behavior. In moments of anger, frustration, or stress, the natural instinct is often to react, whether it's shouting, complaining, or jumping to conclusions. However, this immediate response can often lead to regret. Silence, on the other hand, offers a moment to pause, to breathe, and to regain control. In the stillness, we have the power to choose our actions carefully instead of being swept away by the flood of emotions. It's in these quiet spaces that we cultivate self-restraint and discernment. Moreover, silence enhances the value of our words. When we speak too often, our words can lose their weight. We risk becoming noise in a sea of noise. But when we choose to remain silent until the right moment, our words become intentional, thoughtful, and powerful. This doesn't mean we should avoid speaking altogether, but rather that we should learn to speak with purpose. Silence allows us to listen first, to hear what others are saying, understand their perspective, and then respond in a way that is meaningful and considerate. This creates deeper connections and fosters mutual respect. Another layer to the power of silence lies in its ability to reveal truth. In a society where everyone is quick to assert their opinions, silence often serves as a mirror. When we refrain from speaking, we give others the opportunity to reveal themselves. Sometimes, silence creates a space for truth to come to the surface, whether it's in relationships, discussions, or internal reflection. People may speak more openly in the absence of pressure or judgment, and in these moments, silence becomes an active participant in unveiling the truth. Finally, silence allows for peace. In the busyness of life, it is easy to become distracted by external demands and internal restlessness. Silence is the antidote to this chaos. It has a calming effect on the mind, helping to quiet anxiety and tension. It's in moments of silence that we reconnect with a sense of stillness, creating room for peace to settle in our hearts. This peace is not just a temporary reprieve, but a state of being that can guide us through the noise of life, providing the strength and clarity we need to navigate challenges with calm resolve. In short, silence is more than just the absence of sound. It is a tool of strength, clarity, and peace, one that allows us to reflect, listen, control our reactions, reveal truth, and find stillness in the midst of chaos. Anger is a powerful emotion. It rises quickly, often without warning, and it can cloud judgment, distort perspectives, and lead to reactions we later regret. In these moments, silence becomes one of the most potent tools we have at our disposal. Choosing to remain silent in the face of anger doesn't mean passivity or weakness. It is, in fact, a deliberate choice to regain control, to pause before reacting, and to create space for reflection. Silence in the face of anger is not just a way to prevent conflict, it's a way to transform it. When anger takes hold, the instinctive reaction is often to speak. We want to defend ourselves, to make our point, or to lash out. Words in those moments become weapons, but these weapons can cause deep harm. Once words are spoken in anger, they cannot be taken back. The damage is done, and no amount of regret will undo the hurt. Silence, on the other hand, provides a moment of reflection and a chance to recalibrate. Instead of reacting impulsively, we allow ourselves time to think about the consequences of our words and actions. We give ourselves permission to step back and assess the situation from a place of clarity rather than emotion. This space created by silence can break the cycle of escalation. In many arguments, the heat of the moment fuels further conflict, with each person trying to outdo the other in words and intensity. But when one person chooses silence, the dynamic shifts. It disrupts the pattern of escalation and forces both parties to slow down. In that moment, silence can be a quiet but powerful act of restraint, offering the opportunity for the anger to dissipate before it spirals into something irreversible. Silence in anger isn't about conceding or avoiding confrontation. It's about controlling the energy of the moment, choosing to allow time for the heat of emotion to subside. Another key aspect of silence in the face of anger is the ability to listen. When emotions run high, it's easy to become consumed with our own perspective, focusing on how we've been wronged or how we need to be heard. However, when we stay silent, we give the other person room to express themselves. Silence doesn't just stop us from speaking. It also invites the other person to share their side more fully, to express their feelings without feeling interrupted or dismissed. By listening carefully, we gain insight into their point of view and create an opportunity for a more meaningful dialogue. This kind of listening requires a level of emotional maturity, but it has the potential to diffuse anger by fostering understanding and empathy. Furthermore, silence allows us to take a step back and regain control over our emotions. Anger often arises from a place of hurt, frustration, or a perceived injustice. In these moments, we may not even fully understand why we are angry or what triggered it. Silence gives us the time to process our emotions, identify the root causes of our anger, and decide how to respond. Instead of acting on impulse, we can respond thoughtfully and deliberately. This moment of pause can help us avoid knee-jerk reactions that might lead to unnecessary conflict or regret. Choosing silence in the face of anger also has a deeper effect on our own well-being. Anger is a heavy emotion, and when we allow ourselves to be consumed by it, it weighs us down. By choosing silence, we refuse to let anger take control. We create a space where peace can re-enter our hearts and minds. In this moment of silence, we regain our sense of inner calm, allowing ourselves to let go of the tension and frustration that anger brings. This inner peace not only helps us navigate the situation with greater clarity, but also protects us from the emotional and physical toll that prolonged anger can have on our bodies and minds. In the end, silence in the face of anger is not about submission, it is about mastery. It is about taking control of our emotions and our responses, allowing us to move from a place of emotional chaos to a place of clarity and peace. In those moments when anger threatens to take over, silence offers us the power to pause, to reflect, and to choose a path that leads toward resolution rather than destruction. In a world that prizes quick opinions and instant responses, it can be easy to feel the pressure to speak out, especially when we are confronted with a situation that triggers our emotions or curiosity. However, one of the most valuable forms of self-discipline is choosing silence when we don't have the whole story. In these moments, silence is not a sign of ignorance or indifference. It is a powerful act of wisdom and restraint. Without the full picture, our words are incomplete, and speaking too soon can lead to misunderstandings, misjudgments, and unnecessary conflict. The reality is, no one ever sees the entire story from the outside. We only have access to fragments. snapshots of a situation that might not reflect the broader context. When we speak without understanding, we risk filling in the gaps with assumptions, biases, or even half-truths. Silence, in this sense, is a form of humility. It acknowledges that we don't know everything, that we can't always make definitive judgments based on limited information. Instead of jumping to conclusions, silence allows us the time to seek out a fuller understanding, to ask questions, and to listen carefully. It teaches us to honor the complexity of a situation and resist the urge to oversimplify. It's easy to become entangled in a narrative based on what we've seen or heard. Often the first piece of information we receive about a situation can be misleading or incomplete. Whether it's a news story, a rumor, or an overheard conversation, we may be quick to form an opinion or even take action. However, without the full context, we're prone to misunderstanding and error. Choosing silence gives us the space to gather more facts and to assess the situation with a clearer perspective. It is a recognition that without the entire picture, any response may be premature and potentially harmful. Silence in these moments is also a tool for emotional regulation. When we don't have all the facts, it's easy for emotions, fear, anger, confusion, to cloud our judgment. In a state of emotional reactivity, our responses tend to be more about what we feel in the moment than what is actually true. This can lead to rash decisions, impulsive comments, and fractured relationships. By choosing silence, we create a buffer between our emotions and our actions. This pause allows our emotional intensity to cool, giving us a chance to reflect before we speak. It's a form of self-control that helps prevent us from reacting in ways that we might later regret. Moreover, silence in the face of incomplete information shows respect for others and for the situation itself. In a conversation or disagreement, when we don't have all the facts, speaking prematurely can come across as presumptuous or even dismissive of the other person's perspective. By remaining silent, we demonstrate a willingness to listen and learn, to consider the complexity of the situation before offering an opinion. This not only fosters more respectful communication, but also opens the door for dialogue and deeper understanding. Silence is not an avoidance of the conversation. It's a choice to engage with the situation more thoughtfully and deliberately. One of the most powerful aspects of silence when we don't have the whole story is that it allows us to be receptive to new information. Our initial reactions to a situation can often be clouded by our own experiences, biases, and assumptions. When we remain silent, we give ourselves the opportunity to be open to different perspectives, new facts, or even contradictions to our initial beliefs. Silence allows us to enter into a space where learning and growth can take place. It's in this openness that we move from judgment to understanding, from certainty to curiosity. Lastly, silence can be an act of patience. In our fast-pacing world, we are often conditioned to want quick answers and immediate resolution, yet many situations require time to unfold, and often the full story takes time to emerge. Choosing silence in the midst of uncertainty shows a willingness to allow the situation to reveal itself in its own time, rather than forcing conclusions prematurely. This patience fosters deeper insight and a greater ability to respond in ways that are grounded in truth rather than assumptions. In the absence of the whole story, silence becomes an act of wisdom, humility, and emotional regulation. It helps us avoid misjudgment, deepens our understanding, and fosters respectful, thoughtful communication. Silence in these moments is not an escape from responsibility. It is a choice to engage with the truth when we are ready to hear it fully. Insecurity is a feeling that everyone faces at some point. It arises when we doubt ourselves, our worth, or our abilities. In these moments, the desire to compensate for our perceived inadequacies is powerful. We often feel the need to speak louder, justify ourselves, or prove our value to others. Yet, there is a profound strength in choosing silence during times of insecurity. It may seem counterintuitive to remain silent when we feel vulnerable, But in reality, silence in these moments is a form of self-preservation, self-respect, and self-discovery. When we are insecure, our immediate impulse is to fill the silence with words that either validate our existence or protect us from judgment. We may over-explain, boast, or seek constant reassurance. But in doing so, we risk projecting an image of weakness or desperation. Words spoken out of insecurity rarely convey the depth of who we truly are. Instead, they often reveal more about our fears than our true identity. Silence, however, allows us to step away from the noise of our insecurities and to reclaim our sense of inner strength. It creates a space where we do not have to prove ourselves or fight for approval. It gives us permission to be still, to simply exist without the need to explain, defend, or justify our worth. Moreover, silence in the face of insecurity allows us to tap into our deeper sense of self. When insecurity strikes, we often lose sight of who we are and become preoccupied with how others perceive us. This external focus pulls us away from our true identity and our core values. Silence helps us reconnect with ourselves. It offers a moment of pause to reflect on our strengths, our accomplishments, and the qualities that make us unique. By choosing silence, we stop chasing external validation and start listening to our own inner voice. It's in these moments of stillness that we can remind ourselves that our value does not depend on others' opinions or fleeting external achievements. So ask yourself, what is the holy grail to you? Silence also serves as a powerful shield in moments of vulnerability. When we are insecure, we may be more susceptible to criticism or judgment. Our emotions are raw and our defenses are down. Speaking out in these moments, especially without clarity or conviction, can invite more negativity or fuel further self-doubt. By choosing silence, we protect ourselves from the external noise that may exacerbate our insecurities. Silence allows us to weather the storm of external judgment without absorbing its impact. It's a quiet form of resistance, resisting the urge to react to every comment, every glance, and every opinion. It is in this quiet space that we find resilience. In times of insecurity, silence also grants us the opportunity to observe rather than react. When we are insecure, we may find ourselves overly focused on how we are perceived by others. This heightened self-awareness can lead to unnecessary comparisons and anxiety. By remaining silent, we take a step back from our internal dialogue and create the distance needed to observe the situation without getting caught up in our own emotional turmoil. Silence becomes a tool for clarity, allowing us to view the world around us with greater objectivity. This distance helps us see that others are not always focused on us as we fear. It also allows us to understand the dynamics of a situation more fully, rather than reacting impulsively to our own perceived inadequacies. Additionally, silence in moments of insecurity demonstrates a level of emotional maturity. Instead of overcompensating or lashing out, remaining silent in the face of self-doubt shows that we can be present with our feelings without allowing them to control our actions. It's a recognition that we don't have to justify our every move, that we can sit with our discomfort and allow it to pass without needing to voice it to the world. This kind of restraint is a sign of strength, as it shows that we are in control of our emotions rather than being at their mercy. Finally, silence offers the opportunity for growth. Insecure moments are often learning moments, times when we can reflect on what we're truly afraid of and why. When we are silent, we create the space to explore the roots of our insecurity. Are we afraid of failure, of not being good enough, of being judged? Silence encourages us to ask these questions and to dive into the heart of our fears. It is through this introspection that we grow, learn, and develop the confidence needed to face the world as our authentic selves. In times of insecurity, silence becomes a space where we can regroup, reflect, and find inner strength. It's not about avoiding our feelings or running from our vulnerabilities. It's about creating a space where we can experience these emotions without letting them define us. Conflict is an inevitable part of life, whether it's a disagreement in a personal relationship, a tense discussion at work, or a difference of opinion within a community. Conflict arises when differing viewpoints clash. The natural response in such moments is often to argue, defend, or assert one's perspective. However, silence during conflict can be an incredibly powerful tool for resolution, growth, and understanding. Rather than escalating the situation or deepening divisions, silence can create space for reflection, calm, and healing. When conflict arises, emotions tend to run high. The urge to react impulsively is strong, especially when we feel misunderstood, disrespected, or threatened. However, when we choose silence in these heated moments, we prevent the situation from spiraling further out of control. By pausing instead of immediately responding, we create the distance needed to regain composure and clarity. Silence acts as a form of emotional regulation. It allows us to step away from the immediate reactionary impulse, giving our minds time to process the situation and our feelings. This moment of pause can be the difference between saying something we regret and responding thoughtfully. Moreover, silence during conflict allows both parties to cool down and regain a sense of equilibrium. In the heat of the moment, when words are flying fast and tensions are rising, it's easy for both people to become entrenched in their positions, each trying to make their point or win the argument. The more each person speaks, the more entrenched the conflict becomes. Silence, however, has a calming effect. It provides an opportunity for both sides to pause, breathe, and let the intensity of the situation dissipate. In this space, the volume of the conflict is reduced and the emotional temperature of the exchange lowers, making it easier to navigate toward a resolution. Silence also opens the door to listening. In the midst of conflict, we often become so focused on defending our own perspective that we stop listening to the other person. We are consumed with formulating our next response rather than truly hearing what the other party has to say. Silence creates a space for active listening. By choosing to be quiet, we allow ourselves the chance to absorb the other person's thoughts, feelings, and concerns without interrupting or dismissing them. This simple act of listening can help both parties feel heard, valued, and respected, which can in turn reduce hostility and pave the way for understanding. Additionally, silence during conflict can create a moment of reflection. When we are caught up in an argument, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. We get fixated on the immediate disagreement and the emotions tied to it. Silence provides a chance to step back and ask ourselves, what is the underlying issue here? Is this disagreement truly about the topic at hand? Or is it a deeper frustration or misunderstanding? By pausing, we gain the ability to look beyond the surface and consider the emotional, relational, or situational factors that might be influencing the conflict. This reflection can lead to a more meaningful and productive discussion when the time comes to speak again. In some cases, silence is an act of de-escalation. And there are moments when the conflict is so charged that responding with words will only intensify the situation. Choosing silence in these cases prevents further fuel from being added to the fire. It can serve as a form of self-portrayal, where we make the conscious decision not to react in ways that could worsen the conflict. By withholding hasty words, we give ourselves and the other person the time needed to cool off, reducing the likelihood of saying something that could cause further harm. This self-restraint is not about avoidance. It's about making a deliberate choice to prevent the conflict from escalating. Furthermore, silence can be a tool for self-awareness. Often when we're involved in a conflict, we can become so wrapped up in our emotions that we fail to see our own role in the situation. Silence provides the space to check ourselves and reflect on whether our actions or words have contributed to the conflict. Are we holding on to past grievances that are fueling our anger? Are we reacting to a perceived offense rather than the situation itself? In these moments of silence, we can identify our own triggers, patterns, and emotional responses, helping us grow and respond with more awareness and maturity in future conflicts. Lastly, silence during conflict can set the stage for healing. Once the initial emotions have subsided and both parties have had time to reflect, the silence gives way to more constructive communication. It's in these quieter moments that true resolution can take place. With the space to think and listen, both people can approach the situation with a renewed sense of understanding, empathy, and a shared willingness to find common ground. Silence, then, is not an avoidance of the conflict, but a way to prepare for a more thoughtful and productive resolution. In conflict, silence isn't about being passive or giving up. It's about choosing the right moment to speak and knowing when to pause. It is a tool that promotes emotional regulation, deep listening, and thoughtful reflection. By embracing silence during conflict, we give ourselves and others the opportunity to approach the situation with a clearer mind and a more open heart. By taking the air off the table, feeling overwhelmed is a natural response to the pressures of life. Whether it's the demands of work, the complexity of relationships, or the weight of personal challenges, there are moments when everything seems to come at once and it feels impossible to manage. In these times, when the mind is cluttered and the heart is heavy, silence can be a powerful remedy. Instead of reacting to the overwhelm with more action, more words, or more noise, silence offers a sanctuary, a space where we can retreat, recalibrate, and regain control over our emotions and thoughts. When we are overwhelmed, our minds become crowded with tasks, worries, and obligations. We may feel as though we are drowning in the noise of life, trying to keep up with everything that's demanding our attention. The instinct in such moments is often to speak, act, or do something to alleviate the pressure. We may vent our frustrations to others, seek reassurance, or try to solve everything in one go. But in these moments of overwhelming stress, more action can often lead to more confusion and chaos. Silence, however, offers a pause, a break in the noise, where we can simply exist without the pressure to do anything. It's in this stillness that we can take a breath, slow down, and give ourselves permission to not have all the answers right away. Silence, when we are overwhelmed, also gives us the space to reflect on the root causes of our stress. Often, when we're caught in the rush of trying to manage everything at once, we don't take the time to assess why we feel so burdened. Are we overcommitted? Are we afraid of failing? Are we trying to meet unrealistic expectations? In the quiet, we can tune into these underlying feelings and gain a deeper understanding of our emotional state. This reflection allows us to approach the overwhelm not as an insurmountable force, but as a series of smaller, more manageable factors that we can address one by one. Silence gives us the clarity to identify what needs our attention and what can be let go of for a time. Moreover, silence can be an act of emotional self-regulation. When everything feels overwhelming, our emotions are often the first to take a hit. We may feel anxious, frustrated, or exhausted. These emotions, if unchecked, can spiral into panic or emotional burnout. By choosing silence, we allow ourselves the time and space to regain control over these emotions. Instead of reacting from a place of heightened stress, silence gives us the opportunity to calm our minds and reset our emotional state. It's a simple yet profound way to stop the emotional floodgate from opening too wide, helping us regain composure before making decisions or interacting with others. In times of overwhelm, silence also fosters patience. We may want immediate solutions or relief from the pressure, but the reality is that sometimes the best course of action is simply to wait. Silence teaches us to be patient with ourselves and the situation at hand. It reminds us that not every problem needs an immediate fix, and not every feeling requires an instant response. By embracing silence, we learn to let go of the urge for instant gratification and instead allow ourselves the time to process our emotions, thoughts, and the circumstances surrounding us. This patience is essential in helping us to deal with overwhelm in a more measured and thoughtful way. Furthermore, silence during moments of overwhelm creates a boundary between ourselves and the external world. When we are overwhelmed, it's easy to become enmeshed with the demands of others. We may feel pulled in different directions by work, family, friends, and society. Silence serves as a boundary, creating a space where we can focus inwardly without the constant pull of external expectations. It is a way of saying, I need time for myself. And in doing so, we preserve our mental and emotional energy. This boundary helps to protect us from burnout, giving us the opportunity to recharge before we return to the world around us. In addition to these benefits, silence when overwhelmed also allows us to connect with something deeper than the surface level stresses we face. In the stillness, we can reconnect with our inner peace, our sense of purpose, and our values. The external chaos may continue, but in silence, we find our anchor. It's a moment to remind ourselves that while life may feel overwhelming at times, we are capable of weathering the storm. We can trust ourselves to navigate through the challenges, and we can choose how to respond to the pressure around us. Silence, in this sense, becomes a source of resilience, helping us to face life's difficulties with a clearer mind and a steadier heart. When we are overwhelmed, the impulse may be to push through, speak out, or act quickly. But in reality, silence offers us something far more valuable: the space to breathe, reflect, regain emotional balance, and cultivate patience. It is in these quiet moments that we find the strength to continue moving forward, not by doing more, but by giving ourselves permission to simply be still. In a world filled with noise and constant chatter, there is profound value in knowing when to remain silent. One of the most powerful moments of silence comes in the presence of wisdom. When wisdom enters a space, whether through a person, a book, or a moment of deep reflection, it often calls for a pause. Silence in such moments isn't just the absence of words. It is a recognition of the depth and significance of what is being shared or understood. In the face of wisdom, silence allows us to absorb, process, and integrate the knowledge and insights presented before us. First and foremost, silence in the presence of wisdom is a sign of respect. When someone shares their wisdom, whether through life experience, expertise, or careful thought, it is an opportunity to acknowledge their journey and the value of their insights. Speaking over wisdom or interrupting it diminishes its impact. Silence, on the other hand, creates space for that wisdom to land. By choosing to remain silent, we honor the speaker's words, offering them the full attention they deserve. This is not just about being polite, but about recognizing that the knowledge being shared may have the power to change our perspective or life. Moreover, silence allows us to fully absorb wisdom. Wisdom often comes in layers, offering deeper meanings that cannot be captured in a single hearing or glance. When we speak or react too quickly, we risk missing these nuances. Silence, in this case, is an active engagement with the wisdom being presented. It provides time to reflect on what is being said, allowing the full weight of the message to sink in. This moment of stillness gives us the opportunity to understand the deeper layers of truth or insight that might not be immediately apparent. The process of absorbing wisdom requires patience, and silence fosters this patience. Check. Additionally, silence in the presence of wisdom is a way of guarding our hearts and minds from unnecessary distraction. In our fast-pacing world, we are often bombarded with so much information that it can be easy to become overwhelmed or distracted. We may feel the need to respond immediately or to process information quickly, but this impulse can prevent us from truly grasping the meaning behind what is being shared. Silence acts as a filter, allowing us to sift through the noise and focus solely on what is truly important. By quieting the chatter of our own thoughts, we create the mental space necessary to fully engage with wisdom and understand its relevance to our lives. Furthermore, silence in the presence of wisdom also invites humility. Wisdom often challenges our preconceived notions or reveals areas where we lack knowledge. To remain silent in such moments is to acknowledge that we do not have all the answers and that there is much for us to learn. This kind of humility is essential for growth. It creates the mental and emotional openness necessary for new ideas to take root. Silence in the face of wisdom allows us to embrace our own limitations, recognizing that learning is an ongoing journey and that we are always in the process of becoming wiser. In essence, silence in the presence of wisdom is not about withholding words for the sake of politeness. It is a conscious choice to step back, reflect, and deeply engage with the profound insights being offered. Whether it's listening to the words of a mentor, absorbing a thought-provoking book, or contemplating an inner revelation, silence creates the space we need to fully grasp and integrate wisdom into our lives. In conclusion, silence is a powerful and transformative tool that we often underestimate in our fast-paced, noisy world. Whether in moments of anger, insecurity, conflict, overwhelm, or when faced with wisdom, silence allows us to pause, reflect, and respond with greater clarity and understanding. It helps us regulate our emotions, listen deeply, and make thoughtful decisions. By choosing silence, we create space for personal growth, emotional resilience, and stronger relationships. It empowers us to move beyond impulsive reactions and embrace a more intentional and reflective approach to life's challenges. In a society that often values constant noise and quick reactions, the ability to remain silent in key moments is a mark of emotional maturity, wisdom, and strength. Ultimately, silence is not an absence, but a presence. A presence that allows us to listen to others, understand ourselves, and engage more meaningfully with the world around us.